Morning, folks. How are we all doing? Cameron's my name, as mentioned there. Pat's joining me here today. So we're going to be talking you through automating detection and response with a pretty interesting technology called Tines. We don't take ourselves very seriously, but we do take the technology seriously, as we'll be able to show you here. Now, just to kick us off, in the build-up to B-Sides, me and Hazel were chatting. Anyone hasn't met Hazel, one of the legendary organisers of the event today. And as we're talking about B-Sides and exchanging some photos of our fur babies, Bonzo on the right there being mine, and Angus being Hazel's. Well, that actually is a real photo of my dog. He does actually sit on the couch like that on a regular basis. But when we were exchanging the photos, it had me thinking about, what would these fine cybersecurity people coming to B-Sides need more of in their lives? Can anyone take a swing at what that might be?
Dog photos?
Yeah. Close. I'll actually buy several pints for someone if they get it right. More slides delivered by vendors. That's what the light bulb moment is for me. I joke. We're not going to spend too much time on the slides, but I think a bit of context is probably important for the technology itself, for it to kind of make sense for you. So Tines, if you haven't heard of us, we are a very flexible workflow automation tool for security and IT teams. So we're a humble Irish company with big ambitions and a big mission. And to kind of give you some backgrounds of kind of how we came about. Basically, the two guys that founded us, Hinchy and TK, were security practitioners themselves. They were head of SecOps and cyber with eBay, DocuSign, and PayPal. And ultimately, a lot of the problems they had then with their teams are still very, very prevalent now around burnout, noise in their environment, analysts really struggling to get on top of alert volumes and workload, and ultimately the security team not having the bandwidth to focus on the work that they would like to focus on. At the time, they had evaluated SOAR platforms. If anyone's interacted with the SOAR platform in the past, you might have some context for what I'm saying here. But the challenges that they would have had with those tools were that they required a team of developers who could write Python to deploy and also maintain the automation, which makes a deployment could be quite cumbersome, very lengthy, quite complex for the team to use. And the way that they integrated was based on pre-built integrations. And that meant that they couldn't necessarily have the flexibility to integrate across the stack the way they'd like to. So the idea of building Tines was kind of the antithesis to SOAR. But really, a lot of the same problems that they had then, those teams now come to us to solve. So security teams now obviously handle a lot of repetitive work day to day. And a lot of reports we've done, 81% of those teams agree that their workload's growing. As a result of what we would say alert fatigue and burnout and mental health within the industry, there's a lot of changing stakeholders, a lot of people considering moving jobs. Obviously, as attack surfaces increase, more and more tools get added to tech stack. So I think we're kind of at a point now of 77 being the average number of tools in a security tech stack. And off the back of that, obviously you have disparate systems that don't communicate well. And as a result of all of this, you have missed SLAs and an impact on metrics. So Tines is built as a platform to be very flexible to integrate whatever you need it to integrate with. So as long as you have an API, we can connect to that endpoint, and then democratize automation by being a drag and drop no code platform. Now, yes, you can run scripts in Tines, but the idea of it is that everybody in a security team or an IT team can build, manage, and monitor their own workflows as opposed to being bottlenecked by a small team to do it. So if we think about how it works, as I said, no code functionality. When you're building workflows, it's like a visual process map that Pat's going to show you here. The other thing then in terms of flexibility, so if you have APIs, that's how we integrate, and we'll show you how quickly that is to do. We can run in any environment that you need us to, cloud, on-prem. We can even do hybrids where if you deploy this as a SaaS and you need to connect to on-prem architecture, we would use a Tines tunnel to do so. And then just giving you the ability to manage and monitor the workflows as you go, and be able to obviously continue to report and visualize workflow outputs. So what that kind of does, folks, is it opens up a wide variety of use cases. So with Tines, like our bread and butter original use case was end-to-end automation of responding to phishing. Alert management then, ingesting alerts from SIEM, EDR, IAM, bespoke alerts, and then obviously connecting all the tools as part of that investigation, enrichment, and the remediation. Then things that are slightly less common have popped up for us. Things like vulnerability management, employee offboarding and onboarding. IT teams then and product security teams start to adopt us. So you can see there's a lot that you can do with Tines. I've seen people automate fantasy football rosters with Tines. You know, it's extremely, extremely versatile. But obviously that's just words. So I think the best way to actually get Tines is to see it in action. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Pat.
That was quick.
Yeah, what was that, like 2 minutes?
No pressure. Yeah, cool. So we'll drop that down and we'll jump in. Right, so as Cam said, we're an automation platform born in SOAR. What I'm going to show you now is a very quick fire introduction to the Tines platform. How it works, what it does, the basic architecture it's built on, and then I'm going to go through a use case that I've been shown upstairs, which is pretty basic alert triage, but you know, if it had enough throughput going through it, it's really powerful and really useful to different SOC teams and that. If time allows, I'll then jump in and show a couple of the more sophisticated workflows that we have built. But in a nutshell, as Cam said, automation platform, what you're seeing on screen here is what we call a storyboard in Tines. Think of a storyboard or a story in Tines as a workflow, a use case you want to build, a business process. All those terms are interchangeable. And Tines is built on what we call the action and event architecture. So our actions are these 8 little guys over on the left-hand side. So things you'd be familiar with, like a webhook, HTTP request, triggers, event transform for manipulating your data and that. We've got receive and send email. Work exactly like they say. Receive an email. It's like a magic inbox. We can use it in IMAP mode as well. Send email. We'll send an email notification. You can get as fancy as you want with your HTML body and that as well. We also have a brand new action called the AI action here, which can do stuff like help normalize data, localization, translations, whatever you want. People will freak out when they hear AI and they go, what are you doing with our data? We don't use any data within Tines for training or anything like that. It's runtime AI, and we can provide like any assurances after the demo, obviously, to kind of assuage any fears there. And then we have what's called a send to story action. Think of that as a sub process. So something that you might end up doing a load of times across the different use cases. Things like analyzing an IP. So if you've got an EDR alert, a SIM alert, phishing alert, chances are you're going to be looking up the IP or something similar across all those use cases. So we can use a send to story that will do all that. We can copy and paste that and drop it into each of your stories that you're using. So you're maintaining it into one place and not having to, reinvent the wheel and go and troubleshoot in different places the whole time. How we build. Let's say you have a SIM. So think of any SIM you want. As we said, we're completely vendor agnostic. Once it has an API, you get your data into Tines. Away you go. Sounds very cocky, but proof is in the pudding. So if I want to receive an alert from a SIM, I could drag out a webhook. I might want to extract a piece of data from that as it comes in. So I'll connect up an event transform, different modes. So each action is configurable on the right-hand side. You don't need to be an expert in Python or coding or anything like that to use Tines. If you are, brilliant. You will pick up Tines a lot quicker because you're already in the frame of mind with automation and that as well. But if not, we have, like I said, the builder panel here to do whatever you want. We've got automatic mode, extract. I can reference the different data points and that. I might then, when I get an IP, want to go and look it up. So if I'm an analyst, my typical flow would be receive an alert, look at the data, pick out different IOCs or whatever data points that I want to use and go to a third-party system or that and look it up. Time consuming, annoying. If you're doing that 10 times a day, might be all right. Imagine having to do that 100 times a day or even 100 times a week. Anyone guess what happens? I say this to guys up there, you hate your job. Like you're like, this is not why I got into cybersecurity. I don't want to be sitting looking at 100 alerts all day. So Tines will get rid of all that. So with that, we could drag out a HTTP request, hook it up, and that could go out and do that third-party enrichment for you yourself. Okay? Now, just want to show you what our events look like. So I've got a sample curl command here, and I'm going to paste that in here and just run it. So I said that Tines was action and event architecture. So you probably saw a little one pop up there on the screen. So what I've done is sent a payload to my webhook. And all this is very basic payload with favorite color blue, name Alice, title engineer. I can check my event panel here to see that HTTP request work. Got a 201. Perfect. Check my webhook. check events, open it up, and there's my data coming in. So really, really basic example of how we can get data into Tines. Okay? Now, as well as dragging out all these actions, configuring them and all that, you're probably going, that's time consuming, I want to do it quicker. We do have templates. So down here, we have about 9,000 templates, I think now, for over 450 different products. So one of the common ones that popped up there was guys were asking us about Elastic. Elastic are actually very good friends of ours. They're a customer of ours. They use Tines for everything. You want to drag out an Elastic security template and you might say, right, I want to query my Elastic SIEM for alerts. There you go. That HTTP request can be set on a schedule to run every second, every minute, whatever you want. And that will pull in alerts. We've got the URL here. We can put in or using a bit of Elastic EQL to pull in exactly what you want, filter out for what you want. So it's really easy to get up and running with Tines. As well as the templates, we have a story library. If I have time at the end, I'll show you that. We've got 800 pre-built workflows. So the exact stories I'm going to show you here. So I'll just get rid of this, get rid of the basics, and we'll jump into a workflow. These are our input actions. Webhook, HTTP request, receive email, output, HTTP request again. These can be used just to show the different verbs that we use for them. And then data manipulation, the event transform, triggers for making branching logic and building out. Said it can be as sophisticated as you want. So enough of the basics. Let's look at an actual use case. So this is one I built very, very quickly. I think it took me about 10 minutes to build this. But if I was actually to hook this up to my SIEM, it would work exactly as it looks here. I've got a sample alert here, and all it's doing is sending in suspicious login. So, affected user is me. Obviously, the source is the wonderful Tines SIEM system. I've got a source IP and a destination IP, kind of typical stuff you'd see from a SIEM alert. So if I send that into Tines, you can see already there was data run through from earlier on. I run that through. Alert is received in the SIEM. You can see all the little spinning coming down. So it's running through. It will literally run through within seconds. So what would typically, as I said, maybe take an analyst 5-10 minutes to go log into the SIEM, look at the alert, go to a third-party system, look up the IPs, take down whatever they want, go to their ticketing system, open a case with the relevant data. Very, very time-consuming. This is all done automatically. So the first thing I want to check is, did I actually receive my alert from my SIEM? So this is our data ingestion stage. If I open this up, and here is my payload, and I can see that came in here, my events panel. Excellent. Every single data point that comes into Tines can be referenced in Tines. So you can reference your metadata, your headers, your response codes, everything. And you can decide, right, I might want to use some of that. I might want to use all of it. I might want to use none of it. In this particular instance, I use what's called a record in Tines because I want to capture that data. I might want to reuse that over time. I might want to do some IP analysis and say, how many times are we seeing this IP or from this user? What the heck is going on? Or be able to create reports for management and that. So I'm using a record here, and it's called FOCS demo, Suspicious Login Alerts Record. Great name. And I'm only capturing the alert type, severity, source IP, destination IP, and user. What that looks like is this. Typical, like a mini table. Think of a record as a mini table or a mini database. And I can have, is it up to 2 million records I think we have now?
Yeah.
Build out different charts and that and present it back. I can use different dashboard and functionality in Tines to build it out. So I'm going to keep a copy of that, go back to my story, and what do I want to do next? So this is the important bit, as I always say, the enrichment part. In here I've got a group. So a group in Tines is where I take a bunch of actions and I bundle them together. The only reason I'm doing that is it's easier on the eye. I could have had a big longer story and I would have been scrolling up and down and people would tune out. But we bunched them together. It's easier on the eye, easier to manage. If I want to see what happened in there, right, I'm using, I think, 5 different tools. I'm using Grey Noise, Talus, Tor Nodes, Abuse IP, and Virus Toll. If I was to go and look at each one of those tools individually for the same IP, how long would it take me? Again, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Happened in seconds there in Tines. And we've gone through, and you can see the numbers going through. So we looked up the IP in Grey Noise, got Tor Nodes, looked up IP in Talus, Virus Total. And that's bringing back all of the data that you would be typically looking in and logging and looking at. So let's have a look and see what it got from Virus Total. Body, data. attributes, all that stuff that we'd use. And again, all these data points can be referenced and used. So the last analysis stats, typically what I'm going to be looking for here very basically is the malicious score. So I want to see if the malicious score is over a certain bit. I could take all that data from VirusTotal, dump it back into my main story. Probably don't want to do that because in reality, you're not going to do that. Check abuse IP. Let's open them all up. Here we go. I've got lovely data from that. Again, might use some of it, might use all of it. What I've done here at the output of the group is I've normalized the data a little bit. And I've only decided to pull back a couple of data points like the abuse IP confidence score, the VirusTotal malicious score, and all of that. Keeping it very basic for the demo purposes. At that point then, I want to create another record. So I've captured the output of my enrichment and I'm going to save that in a record like I showed you previously as well. And again, we can use that for reference in that and further on. At this point, I want to make a decision. What do I want to do with all these alerts? So I've one coming in, so I'm all right. If I've 100, you obviously don't want to be opening 100 cases and having to go and look at them. A lot of these could be false positive, low severity that don't need to be looked at. So what do we do there? On the left-hand side, what I've done is, and I'm using my AI action here to generate a summary for each of my cases using lovely Markdown. If it's low severity, I'm going to generate a summary, create a low severity case, add a comment to it that it's low severity, probably don't need to look at it, and close it automatically. So I still have a record of it. The data doesn't disappear, doesn't go anywhere. Can show there if someone comes back or you're audited, right, you actually did do something with this. If it's a high or medium severity case, I want to open up a case and I want the analyst to start looking at it, depending on the severity. So with the AI action, I just put in like a simple prompt. So in times you can be really specific. You can ask it to create a summary as a pirate or do it in French or Arabic or whatever you want. And I'm referencing, see these little things here? I'm referencing these actions. So the data and the output and the path from them, I'm referencing. So I'm saying I'm a security engineer creating a case in times from the data in, and it's pulling the data from the webhook. It's adding then, it's looking at the records and stuff like that. It's asking to add in links and stuff like that. It will do all of that just based on the data that you pulled in. At this point then, I'm creating my case. So for the example I'm using, in times we have our own case management, very lightweight solution. But at that point in the story, whatever ticketing system or case system you use, it could be Freshdesk, it could be Jira, ServiceNow, the Hive. All you'd have to do is drag out a template, hook it up there, and that will work. Once you're referencing the right data points, obviously. A lot of our customers use Jira, a lot use the Hive, so it's all interchangeable, really easy. So at this point here, if it's high or medium, I want to do two things. Create a case with the relevant data so that my analysts can look at that and start actually doing their job. I'm going to then maybe want to escalate. So I might want to alert my SecOps team, right? So we can do this in a number of ways. I could send them an email. I could send them a text. I could send them whatever. I'm using Slack. So it's going to post a message to my SecOps channel saying, hey, this is a high severity alert. You probably need to take action now. Here's the link to the case, so on and so on. We could have a link to PagerDuty, whatever they're using. And I might also want to block the IP straight away until the investigation is complete. So that's why we added in the 2 bits here. Because it's a suspicious login, I wanted to do one other thing. I wanted to reach out and say, hey, was this actually you trying to log in? So on this branch here, I'm searching for the user in Slack, sending the user a DM, and I'm waiting for the user response. Okay? Before we jump there, I want to double check that my case was actually created. So if I come down here, see I've got a case ID. Perfect. And what I'm going to do now is jump into the Tynes case management and just show you from there what that would look like from the analyst point of view. So our cases section can be accessed from here in Tynes. So each team in Tynes, go demo, over the cases, and we can have different views. So I can have just a list view. I can have this kind of Kanban view that shows me what's in progress, what's done. And the top one here on the left is my suspicious login attempt. So what has that done? If I open it up, everything that I need, well, not everything that I might need, but everything that I've asked it to the AI to generate and put into the cases there. So I've got the relevant data that I need. I've got a description and summary. I added in a couple of emojis just to try and be fancy. I've got recommended next steps, and I've got a link to my SecOps portal. My SecOps portal is built on Tynes Stories. And what that is a bunch of tools that we created that are actually under the hood, they're Tynes Stories. So if I click on it, it's presented like this, like all these different widgets. And these are typical things that an analyst would do. Each one of these is a Tynes story presented on a Tynes page. Think of like a web form or UI. So as an analyst, I might say I want to check maybe have I been pawned or something like that. We can click on that. I can put in the email address, the recipient's email. This is a Times story. If I want to see what it's like under the hood. And that's it. It's just another story. And we have so many different customers and teams that are using this type of functionality for their analysts. So that once your automations are built, your analysts don't have to keep going in and opening up the events, checking this and that. The information is presented exactly where they need it, and they're able to build out these kind of, portal-like experiences and that for them. It could be threat intel, it could be SecOps, it could be anything, any kind of tools you use. Jump back to my main story. Whoops, not there. My case first. From here, I've got a button added into my case. I could, when I'm building my case, I could add in 20 buttons if I want. I only added one because as part of my case management I want to claim the case versus the analyst. So when I claim that, it's going to add in other actions or other buttons. So again, I just added in like a couple of basic stuff, but all of these can be configured. They could be run a playbook, go out to CrowdStrike, run a real-time response, whatever. And under the hood, all they are, if we go in and edit it, is either a webhook URL in Times or linking to a HTTP request in Times that will carry out a particular action. So you can see that it's just end-to-end automation. We talked then about this part of my story, just to show that it is sending a Slack message. I want to bring up my Slack, open it up here, and we can see here that I got, first of all, in my SecOps channel, I got high severity login attempt, blah, blah, blah. So we're using the Slack block kit builder in conjunction with Times to build out whatever you want. Again, this can be as fancy as you want. I just kept the basic data here again. I have a link to my case, click on that, and I'm back into my case management system. I also sent a message to the end user. So I just used my SecOps demo bot here, and it's like, oh, right, this one here, because I added on the case. So SecOps detected suspicious login attempt for your account, p-linking at Times.io, the location Hong Kong. So you could write in here, could be that, Pat, what the heck are you doing in Hong Kong? Are you in Hong Kong? No, you're not. So confirm if it was you or not. We've got buttons added in here, so I could confirm, yes, this was me, this was not me. That will go back, trigger in our story. And if I go back to my story, and then we'll get a response here coming back. And from there, we could decide if it's not me, we could add in another branch to be like, right, block the IP, reset the user password, do whatever you want. So it's literally whatever your process is. So showing then from start to finish what takes like literally, again, depending on how quick you are, it could be 5, 10, 20 minutes, triaging an alert to something that could be done in seconds, presenting the information back to the analyst, and away they go to do the important work. This is a very straightforward workflow. Okay. We have variations of this that are shorter, some that are way more complex. To show you an example of that, if you go to times.com/library, in here we have 812 pre-built workflows. And you'll see it here for some of the most commonly used tools that security teams and IT teams, engineering teams use across the market. So one of our most popular ones, as Cam called it out, was phishing. We open this up. You might say, right, I need a phishing use case. I've logged into my Times tenant, and here we go. So you can see how complex and sophisticated it can get compared to my basic one. This one gets data into Times in 3 ways. We've got a page or a UI form, like what I showed you with the portal, where you can literally dump an EML file in there if you want. The webhook could be pulling from something like Fisher or Cofence and so on, or the receive email action. That's the magic inbox. You could be forwarding your phishing attempts to that. And then we're just parsing out the data. We're making decisions based on what's contained in the data. If it's an EML, if there's URLs, if there's no URLs, what do we want to do? And we're using the same kind of enrichment that we did in the other story you saw. So different tools. And don't think when you see this, right, you're seeing right, there's a virus total action. Do I have to use virus total there? No. Use whatever is in your stack. Drag out a template. If there's no template existing, it's very, very easy to create one. You can paste curl commands into Times. You can build them very easily with decent API docs, which unfortunately a lot of tools don't have. But yeah, and that's like just a very, very simple example. If I want to use that in my tenant, I can import that, select the tenant I want to go to. there's my tenant, bring it in, and away we go. This is probably the 100th time I've imported this, so I'll give it, 4th this week. And I can decide, I like all of that, or I can get rid of some of this. What's after happening?
I didn't knock the HDMI a little bit.
Are we happy with that?
That one. I don't know what's going on with the other one.
Ignore the blanking blue screen.
Yeah, don't know what happened there. And like you could use all of this, you could use some of it, you could use all of it and add in your own bits and pieces, and away you go. How are we doing on time?
15 minutes
remaining. Shit. We'll go back to the story library. So one we always show, as I said, it's kind of come up a lot up there, is our good friends in Elastic. One thing with the Time Story Library is a lot of the stories have been built by us, by our labs team, but a lot of them built by what we call our friends. So our customers, partners, people we work with. We've got a bunch of Elastic stories in there, and a lot of these has actually been built by the Elastic team. So you can see Christopher there. Christopher's over in Malta. He spends half his day building in Times. That's a lot of his job. And he's very generously submitted some amazing stories. Some of them, don't know how he comes up with the ideas for building them. He's one there for managing clusters via Slackbot. This is awesome. Like repairing shards and stuff like that. Like when he showed us this on a CS call one day, I was like, what's it? Like, this is magic. They're just one of our friends, as we call them. We've got others in there, but literally whatever tool is in your stack, we should be able to automate, get your data in, and 99.9% of the time do what you want. There will be always a use case where it's like, right, you might need to do something a little bit manually. But yeah, that's in a small nutshell Times.
I think another thing to mention is that, as Pat kind of mentioned there, like a lot of our customers, but a massive thing that influences Times is our community. So Times has a fully commercial grade community edition on the website. Yep. Which anyone can sign up to, and ultimately that community, we communicate on Slack. A lot of those users would be responsible for, influencing our R&D team for submitting stories that obviously help other teams build out in Times. And I think one thing that we do always try and do is just, have open ears. Like we listen to our users, and a lot of the innovation in Times, like if you were to see Times from 5 or 6 years ago as a beta versus what it is now, and the speed in which we try to implement changes, ship features and innovate within the platform, vast majority of that has been influenced by, humble users who were just playing around with it at home and have ideas for how things could be done better.
A classic example of that is what I showed you with the cases. So this kind of Kanban view, 3-4 weeks ago, we had a list view at Times. I was on a call with a prospect. They said it would be really cool if you had this kind of Kanban view. Gave the feedback to our product and engineering team, and they shipped it 2 days later. Now, they had it on the roadmap for a long way, but they said if someone's asking for it, it makes sense to ship it. So that's the kind of quick turnaround we do and how fast we get things done. I've probably gone through most of it. Is there any questions? Anyone, anything they'd like to ask? Seth?
Yeah, I have one that was about really interesting. You had some of the kind of flows there that you're gathering data and then making some decisions based on that. Are you seeing more people using the decisions as those kind of hard-baked rules, or are you getting more people trying to use AI for that, or making decisions into trained AI models? Or I guess you've kind of got a privileged view of what they're doing.
So great question. Super question. Everyone's always like, let's just get the AI to do it. We would straight up say, probably don't do that. Use the AI, but at the end of the day, you make the decision. Let the AI augment what you're doing, but at the end of the day, like hard code your branching logic. So we could build out, using those triggers, build out that branching logic. Not, if it's this, ask the AI to go forward or that. We'd never advise anyone to do that. We'd always like put a kind of warning label when anyone's using it, but never like depend on it fully for your most critical workflows. It's a great addition to the product. It's helped us tremendously. Like you saw the case I created there. If I was to do that manually, while you can do it quickly in Times, It's a little bit tedious referencing all those data points and getting it to look nice and pretty, especially if you're crap at Markdown like I am, whereas the AI will do that in seconds. So they're kind of where we'd use the AI action in that. There is another AI functionality in Times. It's the automatic transform. And so let's say I drag this out. Oops. Wait, I don't want that. And I can switch it to automatic transform. And what that does then is your input, it will just run a bit of Python in the background to do what you want. So again, we're helping it to manipulate our data and that, but we're not going to rely on it to make decisions, which we just don't think AI is there yet or should be trusted.
I also think that our philosophy for AI was on the scene, even from an automation perspective. The philosophy was never to replace humans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people's perception can be, oh, well, you know, what, I'm not going to have a job. It's like, it's not necessarily how we think about it. It's like, it's automating the mundane and the automatable to kind of free up to do your best work. If you had your time back, what would you do with it? And the AI thing is, you know, it's a case of keeping the human in the loop. You know, you still need someone to ride the horse. Yeah. And that's kind of how we'd approach the AI.
I guess there's no, is that also, I guess, well, probably part of the problem is like missing out on a lot of potential improvements if you haven't got an AI, which is like a junior developer, junior analyst, and have a senior analyst AI. They did put that's combined the judgments.
Yeah.
And it seems like a perfect kind of place where you want to inject that kind of solution.
Can if you want. I won't. That's probably an easy answer to say, but genuinely, we don't use that for that, and we wouldn't advise it. Our customer success team would be like, if you want to do that, that's on you. You know, the functionality's there, but to your mission critical workflows, you know, I'd rather use the branching logic, which is hard coded, which you can have like connect up then maybe an approval process where it does need that human intervention, rather than leaving it to your little yellow action to make the decision. I'd always use it to augment your workflow, never to decide on what you should do.
Yeah. I guess.
We do have some customers using it like that. Okay, best of luck to them. I just, personally, you know, like they're happy and they're confident, but I get what you're saying. It's like, should we always trust it? Well, you can trust it if you want, but it's up to you, genuinely.
Right, yeah, it seems really interesting pace to be able to have that.
Yeah. We're always very cautious about the AI, and we don't want to be like, hey, we're selling automation or AI automation, and that's not what we do. We sell automation. The AI functionality is something that we had to build in because it was looked for, but we're very, very cautious about it, and we've made sure that there are limits within the product of what it can do, and with your data, and that your data doesn't go anywhere or anything like that. So very, very secure and privacy oriented. Howie.
Yeah, you said with regards to integration with other tools or something, they've got an API, you're good to go. So presumably you've got a library of existing API next in. So if someone's got a tool that you're not previously aware of, does that then allow you to create your customization?
So quick question, I keep getting asked that up there, and you'll probably laugh at the answer I'm going to give you. There's different ways of creating an integration, right? So if there's an example here, if I got it up. So here's Stripe, right? Stripe have pretty good API docs. We don't have any Stripe templates in our template library. But good thing about any tool that has good API docs is they may have a curl command. So if you have a curl command there, copy it. You can go back into Times, and you can just paste it in, and there's your instant integration. And if I run that will actually work. So I've got an instant integration where I created a payment intent in Stripe. Now, if you come across a tool that has crappy API docs, which we do, what I do is I either go to my good friend ChatGPT and I say, give me a curl command, or I use the Times AI to say, give me a curl command to do this. And I copy that and paste it in, and I've been working like that. Or you just trawl through the API docs. We've seen people do that and been able to build out HTTP requests to do what they want very, very quickly. So it's not a case of having to spend half a day coding out Python or something. You do it like within 10, 15 minutes in Times.
So what if it's not using a REST API?
So let's say you wanted to connect to like a database or something like that. Yeah. So we have in Tines run script action. So it's in here, and you can use this, and it's run. No,
Python.
it's under Python. They'll probably change this. So drag this out. It says run Python script, but we can actually run Bash and PowerShell with it as well, AWS command line. But if you needed to do that, you can do that. We always say try not to, because people always can fall back on coding, which defeats the purpose of Tines. But we did get asked for it, so we built it in the product as well, yeah.
Yeah, needs must.
Needs must, yeah. There's always some little bit of Python that's some Python law. And we're not against Python, by the way, if anyone in here is a Python aficionado. There's always something that they want to do, and we're like, okay, let's let them do it. Any other questions?
Are we on time?
We're on time and we're good. So, I mean, obviously, the guys are going to be on the booths upstairs and around all day today and tomorrow. So please go up and ask them any questions. Obviously, the next ones are going to be coming on in a minute. But do you want to give these guys a quick round of applause?